Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Ron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Guys, we are back in the Henri, the Henry IV, the legendary tier French cruiser, with a pretty epic replay for you guys. But I also wanted to put out this video for it works out well for a few reasons. Number one, we just put out our how to become a better cruiser player, talking about heavy cruisers. Heavy radar cruisers, rather. And this is the other type of cruisers, the Italian, the French, the Japanese, and a few other classes that don't have the utility that the American, Russian, and sometimes British do have, but they're still very viable in today's game. Now, one thing you will notice right off the rip is we are gaining this defensive position here, and that is what you're going to have to do. We are spotted in this case, and I actually have switched up my build since this video came out, but you cannot be too aggressive. And if you guys remember, this is actually the exact same spawn that group of triple German battleships was on, expecting me to rush into the cap. And you will see very shortly as both the Schlieffen and this Republik pop up here, rushing into that cap, especially since a destroyer spotted us, would have resulted in our death. So, you have to gain awareness of what you're going against, and then you can judge the situation correctly. On top of that, this position here is just fantastic for the French cruisers, especially the Henri. Why? Because you have decent side armor and the ability to juke. Now, the French don't have the best acceleration, but if you are angled and paying attention to the battleship's reload, then you will be able to kind of, throttle jockey or, judge those shots appropriately. Here is one, for example, and how much damage did we take? Absolutely none, because we were in kind of the apex or the diagonal version of that ellipse. Also, he thought we were going fully forward. We had stopped, and those shells flew in front of our boat. So, a potential 30-second reload that battleship has wasted on our cruiser for minimal to no damage. On top of that, you guys will notice that this was one of my better games with the Henri's fire chains. We already have 5 fires with a permanent fire on that Schlieffen. Now, the Schlieffen, of course, does have the faster returning damage cons, but he only has a limited number of them. So if we see that he stops burning, we're going to want to light him on fire once again. On top of that, the absolute massively chunky damage that these 240s do is just also insanely beneficial. I know my battleship mains are going to be super upset, but guys, if you find yourself in this position, stop shooting, reposition, and try and shoot at the cruiser who's setting you on fire. Now, if a cruiser is doing this, then what you can do is either get the cap or you can retreat, right? Instead of just sitting there allowing me to spam you, use your brain and come up with a solution. I feel like sometimes, and I get it, it's very frustrating to go against. Battleships, can certainly be in some of the very rough spots at times, as the Schlieffen quickly finds out. But instead of, just sitting there complaining, find a solution, right? It's always, battleship mains just expect everyone to kind of sail broadside in front of them. And when they don't, it's like, well, destroyer concealment, well, HE spam. It's like, no, people do fine in battleships. And we proved this last night by playing battleships, a couple times. You just have to reposition and not be useless in your battleship. But talking about the HE spam, we already have the Arsonist medal on that Schlieffen, as our destroyer players actually do a fantastic job. I wish they didn't, because it would have allowed for more damage for us. That is when we noticed the Smolin coming back into view, and we actually took one shot on him already, getting a fire and an incapacitation. So, like we talked about yesterday, especially in cruisers like this without radar, you have to be taking your shots on destroyers. Even if they are low percentage shots, like we've talked about, you can see, I think we get an incapacitation. Yep, another shot or another penetration on that Smolensk, going away at like 15 kilometers. Is 900 or 1,000 less damage that he will have. So as you guys can see, as we work our way back around, our B and A flank have done their job, but you can see that we are a little weak on the C side. So talking again, just mentioning the principles of gameplay and positioning. Thanks to our positioning and a little bit of team support, we have 90,000 damage, and we've only lost what, 7,000 damage there, or 6,000 damage. So a massively huge trade with no risk, with no massive risk to our ship, which is why when those gentlemen said I should have rushed into A on a very similar situation, I just thought it was laughable, because it just, it shows me that, and again, you can play the game however you want, but that is a very low, IQ play, right? It's not going to get me good results to rush into a situation just to help out somebody's failed position, right? Now, again, you do have to help out your team. I'm not saying don't be a team player, but don't sacrifice your ship because somebody sacrificed theirs. That being said, I do see a lot of French, Japanese, and what we call kiting or agile cruiser players sitting in the back of the map, farming damage and doing absolutely nothing to help their team. If if your flank falls, let's say that all the ships were to die on our side and the destroyers were either to die or go to the other side, you have to kite, right? Rushing into that situation, unless you can, potentially navigate the islands to utilize your torpedoes, is the incorrect play, right? So you want to kite and draw out that enemy, and hopefully your team on the opposite flank wins and draws in that crossfire. As we've said so many times, there's not a 100% correct play to either to every game, but seeing as you only have 3 torpedoes and they don't do that much, rushing battleships is not necessarily your most effective play. Those torpedoes are honestly more for cruisers that you can't beat in a DPM fight, such as the Des Moines and others. You will also notice we did leave that Smollett on the flank. I was torn between what to do next, but like we mentioned, because we don't have a radar or any utility really besides maybe an engine boost to chase that Smollett down, and our battleship was a Giuseppe who has a radar, we decided to go to the opposite flank and help out our team in their crossfire. I want to pause briefly and blow up the minimap here, guys. And if you're not looking at your minimap, you're not doing your team a service. Also, it's the next step you need to take in order to become a better player. Analyzing the situations and analyzing what's going on, by utilizing the minimap is how you become a quote-unquote elite player or pro player or a better player. But here we can see that our battleship at sea decided to kite. And why is that? Well, his Z-44, which, go figure, is the worst ship in the game, died on that sea flank, as well as one of our other battleships. Because he decided to kite, right, those ships are all still at sea and chasing him. You can see that one of our destroyers is about to intercept a destroyer that was chasing him, and most of the other ships are still pointing towards him at sea, which has allowed us and the other battleship here, he's kind of blocked by the spotter plane there, to develop this crossfire. So what I'm going to do is position myself towards the southeast side of B, utilizing that island cover. In the meantime, I'm also protecting B while getting the crossfire and not, putting myself in a aggressive position to tank damage. But here, as we talked about, we are able to get that crossfire. I will give a huge credit to our 2 friendly destroyers. They're in a division, and usually that doesn't work, but in this situation it did. I didn't mean to yoink these kills here, but anytime you have a shot at a destroyer, you should do so. And yeet, good night, Mr. DD, thanks for playing. And that is when we come across Mr. G19 Jeeper here. He's going after our destroyer, but he is in a Mino and not able to get into cover. He does get actually a touch lucky that we don't get the perfect broadside. He does get the trade, so he did accomplish his mission, but unfortunately he is still spotted. We pop our reload booster, and yes, Mr. Jeeper, good night, thanks for playing. He was a good lad. He actually messaged me on one of the first Henri videos. He's like, guys, watch out for this ship, it's insane. He was in a tough spot there. We were undetected, and he was trying to go after the destroyers as a good, that is what he's supposed to do as a good cruiser player. I think he was running a radar Mino, maybe not because there's a smoke screen right there, but regardless, he got our Shima, so a decent trade for him, although we were able to catch his broadside. So that is now 3 kills that we have racked up, and just like we talked about, we are in this position here to lob all of those ships on that flank. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for our destroyer to go around the island. He is still kind of working with that Shima here. In the meantime, we're just going to be watching out for incoming fire, such as that shot from the Schlieffen there. And just like we talked about, playing with the throttle, a quick acceleration allows us to dodge all of those salvos and attract more damage our way for basically for free, right? Because we are paying attention and simply utilizing the throttle, we were able to attract that damage away from our other friendly battleships. Now, you don't need to be attracting 10 million damage per game, but part of the role of these cruisers is to attract a little bit of damage. But if you guys have noticed, if you're paying attention to the scoreboard and or the mini-map, you will notice that the Bravo cap has started to swing red. So a destroyer has worked his way into that cap, and of course our Montana, who did a fantastic job repositioning, just got yeeted across the map, so we are now tied on ships. They do have an extra, destroyer to our cruiser. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a little cat and mouse game with this destroyer. We could rush in blindly to B cap here, but we would eventually have to make a turn if that destroyer launched torps, which would put us in a massive crossfire against a Schlieffen and a Montana. Also, rushing against, a Schlieffen who, before he took a massive, hit from our Republik, rushing into a Schlieffen in a cruiser is just generally not a good idea. So again, what we're going to do is play this little cat and mouse game with this island here. We are able to shoot these guys for free. On top of that, we're either waiting for this destroyer to pop out, hopefully catching him in our concealment, or what we're going to do is work our way to the opposite side of the island, spreading out our distances between the other battleships. The last thing you want to do when the game is coming close like this is group up next to other ships with a Shimakaze still on the board. And that is when he comes around the island and gets detected here. I'm not sure if he has awful concealment or how he got detected, but regardless, he decides to shoot at us. No idea why. He must not know that the Henri has disgusting 240mm guns that can absolutely blister him, and there is one salvo. Oof! Confederate and high caliber both achieved as he goes undetected there. So a massive misplay on that Shima's part, although he still is alive, so he's still a threat. Like we talked about, anytime a destroyer lives, especially towards the end of the game, he is a threat. But you will notice we have a majority of our health. Unfortunately, we don't have any more reload boosters. But what we're going to go and do here is attract a little bit of damage while trying to dish out a ton of damage on this Montana. A broadside Montana is a fantastic target. The Americans do have decent armor, but you can hit superstructure, upper belt, and this Montana was actually waiting for me, so we maneuver a little bit. We do take some chunky penetrations, nothing that, not a massive hit, but still, 2 or 3 salvos of that, and we'll be down to, about 10,000 health. On top of that, our destroyer got another torpedo hit. I wish he would have came back and helped us get this Shima. That would have secured the win, but he did get a bunch of torpedoes on target, and I think our Giuseppe, yeah, he's going to finish off the Shima. The Shima decided to rush him, so kind of a low IQ play, but that's the Shimakaze player base for you guys, so I wasn't expecting too much. My expectations were low, but damn, no, I'm just kidding. But here we're basically just in prime position to finish out this game, potentially get a Kraken and a nice host of medals there, as we actually ticked the Wither in the meantime. So a complete complement of HE and solid AP in this boat, as we mentioned in our first look video. This ship is truly just disgusting when you can put it in the right positions. I know a lot of people are just going to want to rush in, pop the engine boost, and try and class 3 ships right off the rip, and you guys are going to find out that that is not going to work. So we do end up getting a double fire on that Montana. As we switch to the AP, there's no sense in really trying to get a third fire, especially since a lot of players are running fight fire with fire. And yeah, we're just going to try and get a nice AP hit on that superstructure, and that is when the Giuseppe decides to hold his shot. Now, maybe he just got a shot from the center cap there, but I didn't see any other shots up until that guy was very low. But it doesn't matter. Kills, there's no such thing as kill stealing. We've talked about it. If you're the type of player to wait and shoot at the last minute, then, just shame on you. But we're going to work our way into the C cap here to try and secure this victory. We're up 200 points, but the enemy actually did get all the caps. And just like we talked about in our video on Tuesday, you don't need to worry too much about the caps, but they are important. Our team did maintain cap control for a majority of this game, which did give us the advantage, but we did not sacrifice our ships when the enemy started taking the caps the other way. That being said, it's a slippery slope of how quick do I let the caps go, but it's something to keep in mind, right? I see a lot of destroyer players in the opening minutes of the game, think that they have to get that cap, and there's 8 ships in that cap, right? If you have to concede it, it is much more important for you to live and then come back and get that cap or a different cap at a later time. But yeah, guys, I'm going to go ahead and let the game finish out here. There's not much else. 202,000 Confederate high caliber Wither, Arsonist, and a pretty nice displaying for the Henri. But I hope you guys learned a lot. It's easy to coach and to say it's a little bit harder to do in game. But the more you watch these, the more you play, the more you think about what your team needs instead of how to get damage or kills, the more the damage and the kills will come, right? By simply playing, the game how it's, in the how it's meant to be played, really, as a team-based objective game, you're going to find yourself getting scores like this. But yeah, guys, that is the Henri there. I think I go over my commander, but it has since changed. We're running the fixated perk in the last slot there. But anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. AA Run out. Peace.